Okay, it is the Friday edition. SportsTalk Media Network. Phil Kornblut, Chris Bergen, Josh Cohen back at our studios in Columbia, 2 weeks away from the start of the high school season in South Carolina, week 0. And no one better to catch us up on what's happening around the state than the man, the myth, the legend. We call him Bib for Best in Business. He's been at this about as long as I have. He'll never admit it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming back to Sports Talk for another high school football season. He is from the Post and Courier and the High School Sports Report, the one, the only, David Shelton.
Wow.
That's your cue.
Can we do that every Friday night? I want that exact.
It would eat up too much of your time if we did that every Friday night.
Yeah, I know. You tend to go overboard a little bit.
How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. I've been worse, but I feel pretty good.
It is great to have you back with us for another high school season. I know you're hard at work getting ready, checking on the teams around the state. What are 2 or 3 of the top storylines you've run across so far?
This week was a big storyline with the rain, especially in the lower part of the state and up the coast, and I guess from Myrtle Beach down to Savannah, and all parts in between, because it has caused a lot of practices to be canceled this week. Scrimmages, there's supposed to be a handful of scrimmages tonight down in the Charleston area, and those are canceled because schools haven't practiced since Monday, because they close the schools, and when they close the schools, you can't do anything. Probably could have done some stuff Tuesday and Wednesday, but yesterday and today it was we got a lot of rain the last 2 days, so they've already canceled the jamboree that was supposed to be next Friday at Wando, the Charleston County Jamboree. They canceled it today, a week early, because schools are going to make up scrimmages next week, and you got to have 3 days off before you can play, between scrimmages. So they're opting to scrimmage instead of not holding back on scrimmages and playing in a one-quarter jamboree, which makes, that makes sense.
Sure.
But other than that, the only thing that the biggest thing, Team Skiza has well underway in their practice, so they're already through pads and have had scrimmages. They started a week earlier. In the high school league, schools, most of the talk or the early season conjecture is on the 5As. Having 2 state champions this year in not just football. People forget this is going to be baseball, basketball. A lot of the bigger team sports, there'll be 2 state champions. So, but particularly in football, you're going to have Division I, Division II. You got teams broke up in the playoffs. Like 2 of the better teams in 5A, Gaffney and White Knoll, they're going to be Division II teams. So, if you're Dutch Fork or Somerville, you're happy about that because you won't have to deal with those schools in the playoffs.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. At first I was kind of like, but they made 5A so big. I mean, it's 54 schools now. To have one state champion, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If they stayed at 48 or 42, whatever it was, I could see it. But going all the way up, making 5A the largest classification, and I think if you kept it the way it was, you'd leave out some really good teams in the playoffs. We're at 2 spectrums. On one spectrum, we're letting teams that don't deserve to be in the playoff in, but on the other end, if it were the way it was, with 54 5A schools, there'd be some good teams not make the playoffs, and I think they'll try this for a year or so, and maybe 2 years, I guess. And they'll tweak it. It'll get tweaked a little bit, but the one thing is in 5A you have 54 teams, and 48 are going to make the playoffs in football and baseball and basketball and, like I said, the larger team sports. So there's only going to be 6 football teams in November that are not in the playoffs. Now, you don't want to be one of those 6. You really don't want to face that backlash, but there are going to be 6 teams that don't make the playoffs.
David, I want to circle back to your point in a minute about scrimmage versus jamboree because I think that's a really interesting discussion. But we had a listener call in during the break and wanted us to ask you, since we're on Class 5A, who do you like out of Region 1, not just from a playoff perspective, but who do you think might be the best team in that upstate region?
Well, it's August the 9th, so nobody can hold me to it.
I get
it. You'd almost hope, you almost always have to go with like Hannah. They're always, one of the better teams in the upper state. And I would say them, J.O. Mann maybe is another one. I think Greenwood could be. I don't know if Greenwood is Region 1. I think they are, but
they are.
I'm still trying to get my bearings on who's in what region. But I don't think you're going to see anybody that was a 4A school move into the 5A ranks and just dominate. Like I said, Greenwood was 4A, and if they're 5A now, then they'll be good. But I don't know how in that region you could ever go against, T.O. Hannah. I mean, they've proven through coaching changes and whatever, and they're not having the championship postseason success that they had hoped. But when you're talking about the first 10 games of the year, they're always right there. They're pretty good.
Yeah, David, that's who I thought you'd say because I was telling Phil off air. It's got to start with Hannah, right? Greenville, another one of those teams moving up from Class 4A to 5A with what they've been able to accomplish over the years, especially offensively. Do you think that translates? I realize with everybody sort of moving up, it's not that grand a move as, say, if they were a 2A team and went up to 5A, but how do you think they'll translate up another class?
Well, I think they're going to be good, but they did lose their coach. So, Greg Porter is now at Lawrence, which is another team, maybe not this year, but you're going to have to watch for them as he builds that program there. But I think losing some of the players they lost and losing Coach Porter, who had really had that thing rolling over there, they'll still be very good. They'll still be very competitive. But they may take a step back just for a year or so because the personnel they lost, coupled with losing the guy that kind of built it, that's going to be a hit.
David Shelton of the High School Sports Report, the Charleston Post and Courier, and, of course, the SportsTalk Media Network High School School Board, which starts in 2 weeks right here on the network, joining us here on Sports Talk tonight to sort of start getting ready for the high school season. And, David, back to your point about one of the jamborees down your way already being canceled because teams would prefer scrimmages over jamborees. I never considered that because they are getting an opportunity to scrimmage against another team. But to me, wouldn't maybe 2 quarters of a jamboree where it's a situation where it's more game-like, wouldn't that be actually more helpful than just a scrimmage?
Than a 1 quarter scrimmage, without a doubt. I think if you could get, most of the jamborees now are 1 quarter. So by the time you get stretched out pretty good, you're done. Which is why you could have a 3-team scrimmage on Monday and go 2.5 hours and get a lot of reps. I know my jamboree, the 1 team 1 cause jamboree, is tomorrow. It's SCISA schools, but we're playing 2 quarters because, I have like Northside Christian from Lexington is coming down. I have Bethesda Academy, which is a SCISA Power from Savannah. They're coming up. They don't want to make that trip for 1 quarter. So we're giving everybody 2 quarters, and we adjust the clock as we see fit if the games get too long. But, I would say that if you could play 2 quarters, you go to those. But most of the jamborees now are 1 quarter things. And if you have your other scrimmages, your ones that are scheduled and you can play them, that's great. Then then the one quarter jamboree is more like a walkthrough, and it just kind of puts your kids under the lights and lets the fans get excited and all that kind of thing. But that's if you're able to scrimmage before that. And the point is, down here, a lot of scrimmages are getting canceled. So, coaches are panicking. It kind of makes me chuckle a little bit because football has become such a year-round thing now. I know they don't want to admit it, but they've been practicing for 2 months. They may not be in full pads, or they may not be where people can see them. But with the 7-on-7 stuff, and 4 days a week at all these schools, you're doing 2 hours for 4 days a week in the weight room, on the field. The only thing that they're quote unquote not doing is in full pads. You want to be in full pads and you want to acclimate to that, but as far as being in shape and being like ready to play, these schools they're ready. They've been working out. They've been doing the work.
A few more minutes with David Shelton as we talk prep football 2 weeks from the opening of the high school league season. Listener John writes in to tell us to remind you that Northwestern moved up from 4A to 5A, will be in Region 3. He was referencing your comment about you didn't know of any 4A teams who could move up to 5A and dominate. How about Northwestern moving up into 5A?
Well, certainly they're going to be a playoff contender, and they're going to be, dominate. No, I don't think they will. But they're going to be very, very good. Some of those 4A schools moving up have been traditional 5A schools before, or when there wasn't 5A, they were large 4A schools, and then they dropped down to 4A with the realignment, and now they're back up. So it's not going to be a huge difference. But I think Northwestern. I filled out my South Carolina media poll a couple days ago when I was listening to the rainfall, and I have them in the top 5 in 5A. So I definitely think they're going to be a contender. They have a great quarterback. They got a great system. They got a great head coach. So, but I don't know that they're going to dominate. I think they'll be very good, and they may well. They may be 10-0, but we don't know that right now. It's just too early to call.
Well, how do you think all of 1A feels about having Abbeville dropping down to 1A? What do you think the reaction is around the rest of 1A to that?
Well, I think when Christchurch got moved out of 1A, there was a huge celebration. And then just as it was calming down, they said, "Oh, but Abbeville moved down." And went, "Oh my God!" So, you lose one, and you gain Abbeville. So but Abbeville's numbers fit. I mean, they win. I would just be crazy. I would say they would win 2A this year if they were still in 2A, but they're definitely the favorite in 1A. But there are some other schools. You always have the Lakeviews and the Bambergs and the Johnsonvilles and people like that. So
the Ladders.
I thought the who?
The Ladders.
The Ladders. Yeah. Well, I didn't know how far you wanted me to go down on the list, but I do have Ladder in my top 10. But yeah, I thought it was funny when all the Class A's, they were cheering that Christchurch got bumped out, and I'll say this about Christchurch. What did they go to, 3A or?
They went to 3A. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're in Region 2, 3A. They're in there with Carolina, Palmetto, Powdersville, Southside Christian, and St. Joseph's.
Yeah, they're the favorite to win that region, and they're going to do well in the playoffs. And the other school that moved into 3A from 2A is Oceanside Collegiate, and they're going to be really good. They'll be. I have them ranked number 1 in my 3A preseason poll. They're going to be really good. So 3A definitely got stronger. 2A, it's not as strong, but it's pretty solid. But you take a team like Clinton, that's been a traditional 3A power, playoff team, and now they're in 2A. That makes it interesting. So they'll be. somebody asked me yesterday, I was talking with somebody, and they were like, what's the weakest classification? And I don't like to determine as weakest, but with the least amount of depth of teams that I think can win a state title, I would say it's 2A. I think there's a smaller group in 2A that could win a state title. And maybe in 1A also, only because Abbeville's down there. And then, but I'll tell you this, if you talk to Jamie Nichols, he'll be like, man, don't be telling people that we're the favorite and all that. Yeah, but, whatever, dude.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Y'all have won plenty of state titles.
Do you think Gray Collegiate can thrive in 4A? Or is that too much for them?
I think they can definitely be a playoff team. I think they can probably contend for their region title. We'll have to see how their season shakes out, and injuries are so important. Their depth is not going to be great because that was their big concern was, their starting 22 could play with anybody in the state, but they had 28, 29 players playing 2A. I don't know what their numbers are this year, but they're going to need more than that. But I think they're still going to be good. I think they're going to have skilled people, and they're going to have talent. They got a great linebacker in Bull Ware, so they're a top 10 team, and will probably be, they'll be a second to third round. And that the thing that's going to tell the difference with a lot of these teams moving up is, like a James Island that moves from 4A to 5A. They've won 24 games in the last 2 years in 4A. They're going to win 8, 9, 10 games this year in 5A. It's when you get to that third round of the playoffs where depth really becomes a major factor. That might be where the rubber hits the road for a lot of these schools like Gray and Christchurch and things like that. But through the regular season, I think they'll both be very, very, very good.
Okay, we leave you with this. You can give us a little bit of taste of your expert analysis. We've got the first high school score of the season popping up. It must be in a jamboree, but I'm seeing a score here after a quarter where Shoals is leading Spartanburg Christian 10-0. Your thoughts?
Wow. They did play some football last night. Abbeville hosted a jamboree last night, or at least hosted a scrimmage of some sort. Them and Strom Thurmond, I saw it on Twitter. But, those Hornets of Ware Shoals, what is Ware Shoals? Are they I don't even know what they are. I'm getting
the Purple Hornets, unless they've changed their mascot.
But I'm telling you right now that if that score holds, the ticker on ESPN is going to go crazy.
Okay, David, have a restful weekend, and then one more, and then we'll get at it. We thank you. We'll talk to you next Friday. We'll do another preview next Friday night, a week away. So you have a great one. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks, David.
Sounds good.
You too, buddy. Thank you very much. Okay, David Shelton, High School Sports Report, Post and Courier, Sports Talk. Man has many labels, wears many hats, Chris, many hats.
Did you catch what he said, though, about his jamboree that he's having tomorrow for his outstanding charity?
Yes.
He talked about a team from Savannah being one of the favorites in Skisa. Does that bother anybody else other than me?
Yeah, they've isn't there?
They've had that in the past.
Augusta Christian, right? There's a school in Augusta, I think, has been part of the league too. Okay, be back in a moment.